I would like to remind you all that this meeting is live on the Council's YouTube channel, as I've just alluded to. Before we move into this afternoon's proceedings, there are a few housekeeping matters that I'd like to bring to members' attention. I'd like to remind members and officers to stand when they are speaking in the chamber. Can I also please remind members that any speeches must be limited to 6 minutes and directed to the item or question under discussion. Please may I remind members, officers, including the press and public, that are in attendance today that all mobile phones must be placed in silent mode, and no calls should be made or received in the chamber during the meeting. Brilliant timing, brilliant. Okay, members will have noted that there are no private pink papers for consideration today. Accordingly, I cannot foresee any reason for the meeting to move into private Part 2 proceedings. However, if it does become necessary, I invite members to consider to move usual resolution to exclude the press and public from that part of the meeting. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. I understand we've received apologies from Councillors Foster, Dodd, Jeff Watson, Carr, Ferguson, Ball, Clark, Swinbank and Bridget. Are there any further? Councillor Dickinson.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Purvis for lateness and Councillor Scott.
Well, Councillor Purvis behind you.
I withdraw Councillor Purvis. He's behind me.
Councillor Scott. Yes, Councillor Bourne. It's Councillor Towns.
Councillor Towns.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay, any more? I've not missed any more, have I? Thank you. Our next agenda item is to confirm the minutes of the following council meetings as a true record, and that is Wednesday the 4th of May 2022, page 11 to 28, Wednesday the 8th of June 2022, the extraordinary meeting from page 29 to 42, and Tuesday the 21st of June 2022, pages 43 to 52. As Business Chair, I move acceptance of these minutes as a true record. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Councillor Robinson.
Just a slight question on one of them, Chair. Page 38, it was said Councillor Robinson sought confirmation there was still 700,000 in the account. I actually said several 100,000.
That's a change. And Councillor Morford, you wish to say something?
Thank you. Just to point out that my name's missing as Vice Chair of the Northumberland Cycling and Walking Board in the minutes of the annual meeting. That's page 16 of the agenda.
Okay, we'll make sure that's amended.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dale.
Yes, can I just say on page 10, page 17, report of the monitoring officer about the, I'm totally forgot. Regarding the funding of broadband for members, Councillor Dale comments it was important for the Council to ensure all members have equal access. And then, just lastly, we've had a letter from the Council concerning the use of telephone and online telephone. So I'm just asking, I don't want to, can we make sure that this is clarified, because it does actually have tax implications on members and it's a real mess. I don't mean it unkindly, but it needs to be looked at, and not when Councillor Wearmouth said... Do
you agree, are the minutes accurate there from your perspective?
Yes.
Right, okay, can you then email me on that? That's probably the best, or email leader or whoever on that one. That'll probably be the best way to proceed on that,
Well,
Councillor.
I'll email all members probably, that's probably the best.
Thank you. Right, okay, so I've proposed all them. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hardy. Is that agreed, everyone? Agreed. Thank you very much. Next item is disclosure of members' interest. Does any member have any interest to declare they have not already been declared to the monitoring officer before this meeting? I do not see anyone indicating. It would be helpful for the minutes purposes if you could fill out any forms if you do have them, so that's fine. Hand them to Democratic Services should you need to at any time. Item 4.5, moving on to announcements. I have a few to make, as does the leader, so I'll pass to the leader first to make these announcements.
Thank you very much. I did say that I would keep Council up to date on the devolution discussions that are still going on. The leaders of the 6 local authorities met with Neil O'Brien, who's the minister responsible for this, along with his civil servants last week. We had a fairly good discussion, but there are still 1 or 2 areas that need to be ironed out. As soon as those are ironed out, which I hope they will be, I will come back to Council, even if it means setting up a special Council meeting to discuss this and get everyone's view on this, because as I've said from the beginning, it's important that all members have a say in this. The other point is that Durham County Council at the moment have not yet decided which way they want to go, whether they want to go with an LA7, whether they want to go with perhaps some arrangement with Tees Valley, or alternatively they may not want to go with any arrangement. But we are talking to them. It's very important, I think, that we do ask Durham to join an LA7 if all the conditions are right for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I've just got my announcements as business chairs, and that's just concerning the Queen's special birthday honours in Northumberland. There have been awards of the Commanders of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, to Michael Keith Brodie, Chief Executive, NHS Business Service Authority, for services to health, particularly during the response to COVID-19, and he lives in Ashington in Northumberland. Members of the Order of the British Empire, MBE, Graham Arnold Conley, Manager, Monument View Children's Home, Sunderland, for services to children and young people, and he lives in Blythe in Northumberland. Paul Matthew Cook, Principal and Chief Executive, Hereward College, for services to young people with special educational needs and disabilities, and he lives in Blythe in Northumberland. Dr. Angus George Lunn, Vice President, Northumberland Wildlife Trust, for services to education and to peatland conservation. He's a Newcastle resident, but that's Northumberland based. Professor Elizabeth Ruth Plummer, Professor of Experimental Cancer Medicine, Translational and Clinical Research Institute, Newcastle University, for services to medicine. Kate Thompson, Head of Extra Care Services, Joseph Rowntree Housing Trust, for services to social care, and she's from Stocksfield in Northumberland. Medalists of the Order of the British Empire, BEM, Simon Banks, Work Supervisor, Forestry England, for services to forestry, and he's from Hexham. Jonathan Neil Gray, Special Constable, Northumbria Police, for services to policing, and he's from Ponteland. Margaret Mitford, for services to education, and she is from Cramlington. And Michael Scott, Special Constable, Northumbria Police, for services to policing, and he is from Hexham. We have received no other correspondence. I want to congratulate all those people on their well-deserved recognition. We now move to item 6 on the agenda, questions to be put to the business chair, a member of the Cabinet, or the chair of any committee or subcommittee. Under our constitutional procedural rules, we have 20 minutes allocated for members' questions. However, I will use my discretion and endeavour to get through them all here. So I just give me 2 seconds while I get them in front of me. Question 1 is from Councillor Wallace to Councillor Poshai. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. Residents in and around the Camas area constantly read and hear of the new job opportunities in their thousands coming on their doorstep and how this will be transformational in their lives. This part of my ward is recognised as being low in car ownership. Where travel is necessary to shop, see a doctor, bank, get to school or work, and many things most of us take for normal, to learn that the 4 times daily bus service, number 434, Monday to Friday, never on a Sunday or a Saturday or bank holidays, is to stop running from the 24th of July is frankly unbelievable and sickening for many. Residents and bus users Residents and bus users wish, as do I, to know what steps has the administration taken to ensure this service is not lost forever. Thank you, Chair.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. The bus service number 434 is council-funded service, and we received in May 2022 a letter from Go North East that they have an intention to withdraw the service with effect from the 24th of July this year, citing increasing operating costs and resourcing issues as the reasons for the withdrawal. Recognizing the importance of this service not only to the residents of the Camis but the other communities along the route, Northumberland County Council agreed a short-term extension to the service up to the 3rd September this year. This will allow sufficient time for officers to undertake a comprehensive retendering of the service. Whilst we can't preempt the results of the tender process, it is our intention to retender this service on a like-for-like basis, and local members will be kept up to date.
Supplementary, Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure residents will be heartened to hear that. Some simple supplementary questions, very simple. The 24th is a Friday. The 25th is Saturday. There's no buses anyway. When Mr. and Mrs. comes out on Monday morning on the 26th, will they get a bus to the shops, the doctors, or to work? Thank you.
Councillor Pleasure.
As far as I am aware, they will.
Question 2 is Councillor Robinson to Councillor Horncastle. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. We have 48 million in the budget for new housing in the county. Will this be social housing at an appropriate cost to tenants?
Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. I'm glad you've asked this question because it actually gives us a chance to raise a profile of one of this administration's top priorities. So the answer to your question is the 48 million forms part of the Housing Revenue Account medium-term financial plan. I can confirm that this money, with additional grant from Homes England, will be used to support the delivery of new homes that will be owned and managed by the Council, and that all rent levels will be set in accordance with current guidance to ensure they are affordable. I can further advise that to maximise the delivery of affordable housing, that it is our intention to work with partners to ensure, where possible, that affordable housing is built by the most appropriate housing provider, having regard to the location or nature and type of housing.
Supplementary, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. It's this term affordable which I'm concerned about. Can you define the term affordable? Because if it's something like 85% of market value and the market's out of control, it's superheated, then 85% just ain't going to cut it for our residents.
Horncastle.
The term affordable housing is actually a government definition, and it's set at 30% below the market rate in that area. And if it's still not affordable in that area, it can be looked at again. So it's 30% below market rate, and that's for rent and shared ownership.
Thank you. Councillor Hunter to the leader. Councillor Hunter. So I beg your pardon if I skipped one ahead because it's the same people, so I've done it. Do beg your pardon. Councillor Robinson to Councillor Horncastle again.
Sorry, Chair.
It's the leader's going to answer.
What is the impact on our budget of the explosive inflationary pressures currently seen by all residents in Northumberland, and how are we managing them?
Thank you for the question. The impact will be very serious. It'll be very serious on our budget, and it'll be very serious on the people who will be managing their own budgets at home with much more difficulty if they are currently either at work or if they ever have other difficulties at home. So the budget this year was based on around 2.5% inflation, and work has already begun to see where we're going to get to by the end of this financial term and what steps we will need to take. We are looking at the effect of fuel inflation, of wage inflation, and oil inflation and all those other parts that make up the services that we supply. There is work going on at the moment, Councillor Robinson, and we will be looking at a significantly higher figure, and that will affect the budget unquestionably when we get to there. If we feel we need to take steps before we get to the budget round, we will take them, and we will keep members involved in what we're suggesting we do.
Supplementary, Councillor Robinson.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Hunter. Get you right this time. To
Thank
leader.
you, Chair. Since the start of COVID, Northumberland County Council have streamed all public meetings taking place in County Hall via YouTube, which showed openness and transparency. This allowed interested members of the public to watch the business and decision-making of Northumberland County Council. However, in June, this stopped without any advance notification to county councillors. Please can the leader answer the following questions. Where and when was the decision taken? What was the cost of streaming of public meetings on YouTube? And will the Cabinet look at options for the reinstatement of live streaming of public meetings taking place in County Hall at a reasonable cost, or will members of the public be expected to incur travel costs to come to County Hall to watch public meetings, which will also impact on carbon footprint?
Leader.
Thank you very much for that question, and I share your concerns about, I think all members do, because when we last discussed this, all members were very keen that we should make up that gap during COVID with live streaming and recording. Now, I've got quite a long answer, so I'm going to read it out, if that's okay, so apologies in advance. So, as members are aware, during COVID, we increased the number of live stream meetings from 5 to 170 when we had to exclude the public from attending meetings. As of Monday the 13th of June, we no longer required anyone to wear a mask in council buildings, removing the last COVID restrictions. This then allowed us to take a look at how members of the public might then be able to access meetings themselves. 4,000 hours of live video were streamed during the period of COVID restrictions. We've looked at the cost of maintaining that level of live streaming with all committees in the council chamber here. And if we were to continue at this rate, it would cost the council around £186,000 a year, which seems an awful lot, but that's what it's going to cost. I think there's something to do with licences and so on that we have to pay. But anyway, 186,000 a year, which we would, I think, probably agree we could spend that money better fixing potholes in Berwick, for example, or Corbridge, or Blythe. So we just think that we need to do that better. So what we're proposing is that no formal decision has been taken yet, but what we're proposing is some key decision-making meetings, i.e. full council, cabinet, strategic planning, will continue to be live streamed. Other public council meetings held in the chamber at County Hall will be recorded and added to our YouTube channel afterwards. This will enable residents across the counties to view the proceedings of those other committee meetings, and so they will not have to travel to County Hall. At the same time, this will minimise the much higher cost of live streaming. Indeed, notwithstanding the ending of restrictions, we've continued to record and upload these other committee meetings. In most cases, we will be able to upload these recordings within a couple of days of the meeting, or even on the same day. Local area council meetings will not be recorded as they've returned to localised settings, which is good, and the venues do not have our recording equipment installed.
Supplementary, Councillor Hunter.
Just to say thank you for that, and I'm sure the residents would welcome that they will be able to see the meetings, even if it's a few hours or a day too later. Thank you.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Can't address the council like that. Question 5, Councillor Vilcek to Councillor Pojai.
Thank you, Chair. With the welcome news of the Government approving a Transport and Works Act order for the Northumberland line, can the administration tell my residents how they will be affected when the work takes place? Also, once the work is completed, can this council guarantee that residents living on the Bower Grange estate won't see rail users parking on the estate?
Yes, Councillor Pojai.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wilczek. It is inevitable that there will be some disruption during the construction period, but this will differ by the time and the location. Accurate and regular communication with local communities will be essential during this time, and I hope we all agree about that. And that communication will be in a form of a dedicated Northumberland website, a bi-monthly scheme-wide newsletter, letters sent directly to impacted properties, press releases in local media, social media activity on council web pages, hoardings and information boards at construction sites, and a dedicated email address where residents will be able to contact the team. And for this directly affected, bespoke communication will be provided in a letter format, and at a minimum that will include a non-technical description of the works being undertaken, information about the types of equipment to be used, including pictures or images that will aid the understanding of the nature of the works, the location of the works and frequency of that, and details who to contact in the event of queries or issues. And about the second part of your question about the parking issues, in terms of rail users, parking on adjacent residential estates, car parks have been included as part of each station development. Will be free of charge for at least the first 12 months of operation and designed to accommodate the predicted demand for those wishing to drive to the station. Therefore, the risk of people parking on residential streets seems to be a minimal.
Supplementary, Councillor Vilcek.
Thanks, Chair. With the Northumberland line running on diesel rather than electric, and with multiple vehicles stopping regularly at stops and stations, what plans are in place to ensure carbon emissions are curbed?
Councillor Poshai.
Actually, I don't know the answer to that question, but I will be able to provide you a written statement for that.
Thank you. Our next question is Councillor Anna Watson to Councillor Poshai.
I'd just like to withdraw my question in light of the report coming later, and I'll ask my questions then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question 7 is from Councillor Waddell to Councillor Horncastle. Councillor Waddell.
Thank you. So Northumberland County Council has approved a 5% taxi fare rise. A taxi drivers association in the county describes this as disrespectful to the trade. Amid spiralling fuel costs, how does the County Council propose to support taxi drivers in the county without seeing costs passed on to customers?
Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Councillor Waddell. It is important to highlight that the setting of the taxi tariff followed a period of consultation with the trade, at which time not only were the statutory requirements met, but officers also sent out in excess of 800 emails to operators and drivers to alert them to the consultation and invite comment from them. Regrettably, only 5 responses were received prior to the end of the consultation and a further 3 after the closing date, but all were presented to the Licensing and Regulatory Committee when considering the matter. The Council fully recognises the current pressures on businesses, including the taxi and private hire trade, who we were previously able to support throughout the COVID pandemic using funds from government to specifically support 3 grant schemes specifically targeted to support licensed taxi drivers, as well as grants for home and mobile-based businesses, which we know a number of the taxi businesses were able to benefit from. Regrettably, at this time, there will be many businesses and residents alike who will be affected by the cost of living and fuel crisis, but the Council has no specific funding to assist either generally or to support a single business sector who may be experiencing problems at this time.
Supplementary, Councillor Waddell.
Thank you. So in light of there being no available funding, and I've heard talk from taxi drivers of a strike, would the administration support taxi drivers in either striking or lobbying the government for additional support?
Councillor Dell, could I ask you to repeat that? Because
I'll show
I'm
it
not
into the
hearing too
microphone.
well. Go on, you just...
So in light of there being no additional support and conversations that I've heard with taxi drivers, talks of a strike, would the administration either support striking taxi drivers or support the taxi drivers in lobbying the government for additional support?
Are you asking if there's any extra support for them?
No, do you support a strike if they were to go on strike? Do you want to lobby the government for any more support?
Well, as the strike first, sorry, I would not support the taxi drivers going on strike, but there's a running thread here. I mean, it says that the Taxi Drivers Federation thinks it was disrespectful. I wonder which side thinks it's really disrespectful when 800 emails were sent out and only 5 responses were taken. And if you had actually watched the licensing committee, ably chaired by Councillor Hutchinson, and members of your party were on it. I remember watching it. It was a 3-hour meeting. Your ex-party. You would have seen that they handled the licence committee with very little information, and they could not presuppose what taxi drivers were thinking. Furthermore, the 5% is, although fuel's gone up sort of like 40-odd%, that is not the only cost that the taxi drivers have. And if you look at some of the other costs they haven't gone up that much. So, no, I do not support a taxi driver strike. They had their chance to take part in the consultation, and they didn't. As far as the government's concerned, I don't know what we can do about it. I don't suppose the government, like this council, can't support individual businesses. I don't suppose the government can either.
I've shown it. I'll go to the next question, which is Councillor Hill. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. It's Councillor Waddell again, isn't it? To Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Thank you. As part of ECHP provisions, Northumberland County Council pay 30p per mile to parents and carers to transport their children. The council pays 45p per mile to staff to use their own vehicles for work purposes. This is the HMRC approved rate and is designed to cover the cost of wear and tear to the vehicles as well as fuel. People with a disability often face additional costs. We're in a cost of living crisis and fuel prices have soared in the last few months. The HMRC rate of 45p per mile was approved before the fuel crisis. Can the portfolio holder please confirm to us, on behalf of affected residents, that the ECHP mileage allowance will be reviewed in mind of current fuel prices?
Yeah, Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor. This was raised with me via the Deputy Leader by Councillor Brian Erskine from Blythe about 3 weeks ago. About a week later, we got the rate changed up to 45 pence a mile. So I was very pleased with the team here at County. We managed to get that changed very quickly as soon as we realised that it wasn't where it should be. And that rate change has been backdated to the 1st of June.
Supplementary, Councillor Waddell.
No, thank you.
Question 9, Councillor Hill to the Leader. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. The Caller report found that the effectiveness of political leadership has deteriorated over several years and is currently at a very low level. As the political leader of the Council, what is your response to that?
Thank you very much, Councillor Hill. I have to begin by saying this might take a little bit longer than I normally take to answer a question, but I think it's a fundamental question, perfectly reasonable question to ask. But I need to just go into the Caller report a bit more, and I will be quoting from it, but as it's in the public domain, that is perfectly okay. So I couldn't find the quote that you're using. What I could find, at the bottom of page 20, is the effectiveness of political and organisational leadership has deteriorated over several years and is currently at a very low level. So if there is another new one that I couldn't find, tell me at the end, please. But that's what I found. So the other key point that Mr. Calla made was that, and I quote, leadership at both political and managerial level is distracted. So what distracted us? And another quote. At the top of the organisation, there is a significant state of flux and is frequently being adjusted. Such moves appear not to be reported to members nor appear to undergo much in the way of consultation. Many senior officers have left in unusual circumstances with no involvement to members. Additionally, during that period, we had this issue around exit payments, which we will doubtless learn more about in due course. We had 4,792 FOIs in 3 years, which would distract anyone. Sensitive council papers of a serious nature were leaked repeatedly, and that certainly caused distraction. And what we also have had, and sadly, we still have today, abuse of social media. And what I have to say is that I hope that members will come together to agree a zero tolerance approach on abuse of social media, because it's not just aimed at one particular person you want to get at. We've got to remember that family members, wives, sons, daughters, relatives are greatly affected by things that people say about them on social media. And I don't need to remind you how many people have committed suicide because of abuse of social media. And I'll just quote one thing which has just come out on the back of Molly Watson's suicide. There is substantial evidence that social media abuse can influence suicide-related behaviour. So I'm going to ask all of you in the next session to come together and have a zero-tolerance approach to abuse of social media, whether you do it in your own name or whether we use it in an anonymous way. So we still have that, but I hope we will deal with that. And I'm actually really confident that we will come together on that.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Can I ask that the public respect this chamber and do not disturb this meeting? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additionally, we heard from Mr. Calla that reasonable requests from the leader to officers are contested, denied or delayed. So, soon after I became leader in May of this administration, I asked to commission independent review of governance because of these issues. I'd realised it was a risk because there were probably things that an independent reviewer might find that were not in favour of the administration. But I felt we had to do it. I felt I had a duty to do it. And we carried on with this very difficult scenario. And it's quoted again by Mr. Calla, this approach at times dismissive of cabinet members, whether deliberate or due to a lack of experience, has led to the current situation. So I turn the spotlight on to me personally now. Should I have been more assertive over those months? Should I have perhaps tried to be tougher? I will always call out bad behaviour, although I don't do it very often. But I would quote something from the Calla report, which is, being able to speak truth to power is an essential component of local government, and power is held by both members and officers. But this did not appear to be either encouraged or even tolerated. There is an inappropriate use of code of conduct complaint procedures by senior officers against members. I'm sure that there will be complaints against me in the system, but I was quite sure that I had to do what I did. I do what I think is right, and I will always do that. Our services, despite all of this that's happened here, have continued to be delivered. Every day, our staff are out doing great work across the county, in every single part, every single ward, and I thank them. Our staff remain, for me, key in moving forward. And I have to say as well that today we have a very different atmosphere between senior members and officers. One that is much more calm and peaceful, relaxed and well-being. And I will make sure that that continues. And I'll build on that by working with group leaders, that our action plan, which we'll come on to soon, will be actioned. It'll be delivered in full, on time and with complete success. And above all, I will do everything I can to make sure we will not be distracted ever again. Thank you.
Supplementary question, Councillor Hill.
Chair, I have no supplementary at this stage. And as regards the next question, I'm happy to get a written answer because Councillor Watson's not here. So I'm happy to.
Okay, well, I think that Councillor Wearmouth may be wishing to answer that if you want.
Happy to answer it, Councillor Hill, if you wish.
I mean, you kind of touched on it in the first question, so I'm happy. And I'm meeting Councillor Watson soon about advance, so happy to move on. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. I'll move to the... I think that was the final question. I'm just double-checking that. Yes, we'll move to item 7 on the agenda, which is the report of the interim Deputy Chief Executive the report of the Governance Review Task and Finish Group's progress update. Before we move to consider this report, please note there is an amendment to the recommendations to add to the following as recommendation 3. It's 3 to approve the establishment of an advisory challenge board and its terms of reference which have been circulated to around the chamber. The amended recommendation also seeks a delegation to the interim Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with the cross-party task and finish steering group to confirm the nominations to the challenge board. I would like to invite the leader to present the report of the interim Deputy Chief Executive. Leader, over to you.
Thank you very much. I've got very little to add except to say thank you to the group leaders who have worked together on this action plan so well and given me all the support I asked for. It's very important that we do stick together, move this forward, make progress and keep that progress with pace. I did advise group leaders that I would be putting an amendment to the recommendations here today, which outline the draft terms of reference for the challenge board. If we don't do it now, it means that we can't really get started with that, and I'm really keen that we get this challenge board in and up and running. So with that, I'd like to propose those recommendations with the amendment, and I'd like to propose those.
Is Councillor Dickinson, are you seconding that?
More than happy to second the amendment that's been popped out in front of this report.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions? Right. Yeah. Right. I'll go to Councillor Fairless-Aiken and I'll go to Councillor Hill. Councillor Fairless-Aiken.
Thank you, Chair. As a new member of the Council, I welcome the honesty, transparency and openness that this report represents and moving on. And I'm just wondering, is there a timeline or is it going to recur as an agenda item? Is it going to be how quickly is it going to be wrapped up?
Leader straight away.
Yeah, very good question. I'm hoping to try and get the challenge board up and running as quickly as we can. That will depend on getting names and availability, but I would certainly hope that it's in place by August. They will do whatever they need to do, and I won't be involving them at all in direction. It will be up to them to monitor the progress that we're making and to challenge us where they feel they need to challenge us. What we're saying here is that we will review this in 12 months, and so I think that's probably the best thing to do, and if they feel and we feel that they should continue, then that's absolutely fine. We'll do that. Okay?
Question, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Are you taking questions just now?
I'm going to go to the debate in a second.
All right, okay, thank you.
Okay, that's right. Right, okay. So is there any more questions? I'll move to debate on that. I'm going to do my usual thing with group leaders. I'll forego yourself and Councillor Dickinson as proposer and seconder if you want to come at the end, if that's okay. And I'll go to Councillor Kennedy. Anything to put to the debate?
Yeah, just to comment and just say how well I think all of the group leaders and all of the members of that task and finish group have been very professional, really thought about what's required, understood and accepted and consumed the Cala report. You know, there's been no sort of confrontation about it. We know we've all, had to swallow a deep breath and swallow the pill that the Cala report is. But it's been a good and pleasant environment that we've all worked together to put that plan together. I have to recognise Philip Hunter's work, because he's done a huge amount of work very, very quickly over weekends, etc., to put that together. So I think we should acknowledge his hard work. But I think if we can work in that way we have in the task and finish group as a council, where we've all had the same vision of where we want to move the council to a much better place, then there is a chance of making this council a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Councillor Reid, do you have anything to say at this stage?
Thanks, Chair. I'll try not to throw a grenade in. So, Yeah, it's all good. I am pleased that we are all speaking to each other, and we very rarely degenerate into shouting at each other apart from me, for which I apologise always at the end, leader, as you know. I just worry that I realise that you've taken responsibility for this, and you've got yourself and the deputy leader and the council chair down as the lead for all of this. And I just hope that there will be sort of this continuing work and talking to each other. But I am pleased you're actually taking responsibility yourselves. You haven't shunted it off anywhere else. The top leadership of taking the lead on all of this, which is how it should be. What I should have asked when questions came up was just the challenge board. How are we actually going to? How are you going to recruit them? Are we paying them? How are you going to choose them? Or the group leaders or the task and finish group going to have some input into who might be on there? And do they realise that they're signing up for maybe quite a considerable length of time?
Councillor Sanson's indicated he'll come back to some of that at the end of his when he's summing up. Councillor Morford.
Thank you. I don't have anything more to add other than I'm happy to be part of the task and finish group and happy to pull as much weight as you want me to pull.
Thank you. I move on to other members for the debate. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. We're asked to consider, as one of the recommendations, whether we support the list of that the Task and Finish group are going to do. And I do. I think that the list is very sensible. One or two minor points, but they're minor. I don't think the main focus on improving the Constitution is about increasing the numbers in the Constitution Working Group, but the quibbles. I mean, generally, I agree with the action plan. I did, in my opinion, I must emphasise it's always opinion, we're entitled to opinion, we're entitled to speak and have our say. In my opinion, as I touched on at the last meeting, I have concerns that we're not going far enough and we don't realise the problems we've got. The words of Max Collar was a fundamental reset. The way that I see this is like if you've diagnosed a patient and part of the problem, and if you're treating part of the problem, you say, yes, that's absolutely right, that needs to be done. But if you miss other problems and don't diagnose and don't supply the right medicine, then even though the worthwhile work you're doing, you're not addressing fundamental issues. And obviously the patient is not Northumberland County Council, not getting the right treatment because that's not the right diagnosis. The patient will get sicker and sicker. And I see some grounds for some optimism and improvement in practice and so on, but I don't see the fundamental reset. I don't see the change in culture. One of the things Max Collar picked up on is the importance of working together and working with opposition groups. And also, as the leader quoted, I noted it down because it's a particularly good quote about being able to speak truth to power is a really important element of democracy and accepting. You should even welcome criticism and scrutiny. And I'm somebody, as everybody knows, who does scrutinise, challenge in a very independent and objective way. I've upset Liberal Democrat administrations, Labour administration, Conservative administrations. I think that proves the independence being in that position. As such, I have to say, I was extremely disappointed when we're talking about working together to have several members of the Conservative group approached me over the last 2 days to say they're plotting to silence you at the meeting and to get you thrown out. I think that plot has been evidenced in the last 2 meetings. And, well, 8 or 9 people making that up, hallucinating at the meeting. The deputy leader, well, I don't believe 8 or 9 people hallucinating. 8 or 9 people said, people throughout, you know, it's not just this room, it's not just the group thinking in certain quarters of the room. This happened at the Conservative group meeting, and it's disgusting, actually.
I'm going to bring a point of order in here.
Well,
how do you know what's happened at a Conservative group meeting? Well, and you're mentioning 8 or 9 people. Surely you should be naming those 8 or 9 people, or is this just conjecture?
Why? Sorry, Chair, can I just say, if I can continue, Chair, with your permission, it wasn't one person. One person, you could see. It was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it was obvious in the last 2 meetings that this has been attempted. And all I would say is, if you're going to deny it, then there's 30 or 2, 3 people in this room who know that happened. And it's just disgusting, and it's not working together, and it's not like encouraging scrutiny. And as Max Kohler said.
Excuse me, sir. I've now asked several times, I've asked you to please not disturb the meeting. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Member where we are. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm going back to 20.2 of our constitution is clearance of part of a meeting room. If there's a general disturbance in any part of the meeting room open to the public, the chair may call for that part to be cleared. So can I ask the camera to be switched off, please? And suspension amendment to restart the meeting, and we were on agenda item 7. Now, if it's agreeable for brevity, I think that Councillor Dickinson as a seconder may wish to speak, and then Councillor Sanderson may wish to speak, and then we may move to a vote if members are happy with that. So does Councillor Dale, do you disagree to that?
No, we were doing the debate. This is about the Independent Government's Review Plan of Action.
Could you stand up, please, Councillor Dale?
Sorry. This was about the Independent Government's Review Plan of Action. This is where we're up to?
Yes, we're on item 7 on the agenda.
At the time, we were open to debate.
Yes.
And in fact, I think Councillor Hill had just spoken.
Yeah, she had finished, yes.
And I had already put my hand up to speak.
Right. Do you wish to get into the debate now, or would you like us to, for brevity, move?
Well, I just think it's important because that's what we're here
No, I'm
for.
just asking the question. It's not whether it's important or not. Do you wish to speak?
Yes,
Right, I'll let you speak then, Councillor Dale.
Thank you. Can I just draw your attention to page 58, which is the recommendation number 8? I think that's the right one. The reason why I've marked it up is that it is a very important issue. It says, ensure the corporate plan is embedded in the organisation and with members through communication, engagement and training. That is a tremendous amount of work to be done from the end of July in the 6 months. That is a tremendous amount of work. And my concern is that if you hurry these things too quickly, such as hurrying training, and you've got to remember that a lot of members here, not a lot, but quite a lot of members who had no training at all, and to embed all this and actually to pull everybody together, where you've got a divided culture, it will need longer. And I think more working together, more training sessions together, which are not formal, but informal, muddling people up and everything else, and making it more fun in training, might bring people together. But actually, to bring that through on a formal basis, I don't think will actually come to what we hopefully the outcome will be. So I think you need to look at that very carefully, because you're actually setting targets which I don't think can be met, specifically in this case. And I don't want anybody to sit there and say, yes, we will, because actually I think it needs reviewing.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dale. I think the mood of the chamber is now that Councillor Dickinson speaks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the staff who's just dealt with that situation for us, because I think it was out of the ordinary. In seconding this for Councillor Sanderson, we are happy to support this in cross-party work. We think it's fundamental that if we are to change culture and behaviours, that we'll work together on that. And in terms of social media and other things, Councillor Sanderson knows I've written to him on several occasions about it, and we share the same view of the use of it, and I hope that extends across the chamber. And I just want to assure Councillor Sanderson, and put a bit of smile back in the chamber, that there will be no resignations from the working group unless anything drastic happens, and I'm sure we won't have any resignations. So we'll continue in the spirit and we shall work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sanderson to sum up.
Thank you very much. I'm really relieved to hear that, because I have to go in about 45 minutes, and you promised me you're not going to have a vote of no confidence. First of all, to answer Councillor Reid's point, almost all of these are down to me, and it is my responsibility, and I'm happy to take that responsibility. But in answer to the question about the Task and Finish group, I want to set up meetings that are diaried for meetings of those to continue working together. And so far as the recruitment of the Challenge Board, it will be very much up to that Task and Finish group. I'm not going to say, I want this one, this one. I want to discuss it, and we'll come up, I'm sure, with consensus on that. And finally, on the corporate plan, we do have a corporate plan. We took that to Council in February, and it got about 5 minutes because of the procedural difficulty, should we say, before it. So we've made good headway on that. I take your point, of course I do, that it's a taxing timescale, but I'd need these things to be in short timescale. I don't want it to go on and on and on. So I think we'll make it. But I certainly take your point on board. And with that, can I conclude? Thank you.
Okay, it has been proposed by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Dixon, and I'll just put formally to vote. So we'll agree the recommendations set out on page 53 of the agenda pack, including the following amendment to 3.1, approve the establishment of an advisory challenge board in its terms of reference, and 3.1.1, agree to delegate to the interim Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with the cross-party Task and Finish steering group to confirm nominations to the Advisory Challenge Board. Can I have a show? And of course, the piece of paper, the amendments to the piece of paper you received at the start of this meeting. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour? Okay, that's looking unanimous, but I'm going to double check by saying those against, those abstaining. Yes, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move to, well, I'm going to go back to item 8 later in the agenda, and now I'm going to go to, the reason I'm doing that, and I've said it to some of you already, is that we'll need to suspend standing orders to go into that item. And rather than doing the hokey-cokey of suspending and non-suspending, I'll just do it towards the end of the meeting. So that's my reasoning there. So I will then go into item 9 on the agenda, which is a report of the interim Deputy Chief Executive in relation to the Blythe Relief Road, which is at pages 77 to 85 of the printed agenda pack. I'm going to invite Councillor Plozhai to present this report. Councillor Plozhai.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, I would like to present the report about the new Blythe Relief Road proposal, which provides you with an overview of the progress up to date and new preferred road, which has been approved by the Cabinet, scrutinised by the Corporate Services Scrutiny Committee. While a couple of weeks ago, actually a couple of months ago, the reason why this report is coming here today is because the timeline of the project extends beyond the term of that administration, and it needs to be approved by the full council. Thank you very much.
I'd like to move the recommendations, Councillor Plozhai.
And I would like to move the recommendations which are: note the progress of the project to date, note the decision of the Cabinet to confirm the revised Route 5 as the preferred option to take forward to a public engagement exercise, and endorse the sign-off by the Section 151 officer of the outline business case, noting the required County Council match funding commitment and future approval gateways as set out in paragraphs 13 to 15.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Dickinson has seconded that. Are there any questions on that? I'm going to go first to Councillor Watson because she had a question in which she withdrew. So if you could stand and address the chamber.
Okay, thanks, Chair. People of Blythe are very, very frustrated by the relief road taking so long, so I really welcome this report today because I did ask back in April for us to have an update. There's a couple of questions, if that's okay. So, firstly, Route 5 did have a cross-town route, and that seems to have disappeared in this new route, so we've got a little bit of a route between Ogle Drive, Tynedale Drive and Chase Farm. Residents have approached me and said that they are quite concerned that there is just that little section because what we're trying to achieve is reduce congestion on Coupon Road, and they're not certain that it does reduce that, just having the dual carriageway at the south of the town. So I would like reassurance that this scheme will reduce congestion on Coupon Road. And secondly, I welcome it very much because we know that there's 20,000 vehicles on each route into Blythe, which I expect has increased greatly since this report was written. So I would really like to say, can the administration please lobby for further investment, because we have a British Volt factory and JDR cables coming to the north of the town, which is fantastic. And we don't have any way for workers who aren't car drivers to get there. So let's push for a foot and a cycle bridge across the river. Thank you.
Did you want to answer that point?
Yes. So the first question, if the road will relieve the congestion on the Coupon Road, I've been reassured by the highways officers that design studies they perform shows that there will be a congestion relief for the Coupon Road. And I also asked them to do a public engagement event. I think it will be in the last week of this month. It will take place in Kilrow, I believe, or on the back of the St. Mary's Church, depending on the weather and agreements which they make. So they reassure me that there will be a relief for the Coupon Road, and that route has shown the best benefit for both Coupon and Laverock Hollow roads from all of the routes considered in the report. About the bridge between Blythe and Camis, I think that was considered as a part of the previous discussions about the Blythe Relief Road. And we had some negative feedback from environmental agency and someone else, but we may go back to that and reconsider, and I will ask officers to take a look at that, and I can give you the late written statement at a later date when I get any answer from them.
Thank you. Councillor Morfitt, then I'll go to Councillor Nesbitt. So Councillor Morfitt.
Thanks very much. I'm slightly concerned that the report focuses on reducing congestion rather than trying to minimise the increase in traffic. And I've got a few questions I'd like to ask. Firstly, will the Relief Road feature a priority lane for buses? The report tells us that congestion is currently affecting the reliability of the bus services, so I'll be disappointed if it doesn't. Second, will the Relief Road feature a footway that satisfies the Quality Act widths along its whole length? And will priority be clearly given to pedestrians at junctions? And finally, it's great to see that there'll be a segregated cycle path along the whole length of the Relief Road, but can you reassure me that the cycle path will give clear priority to cyclists at junctions?
Thank you, Councillor. At the moment, I cannot give you that assurance that all of these things you mentioned will have a priority along the route in all of the junctions. I think that will be part of the detailed design study which will be performed once we get the outline business case submitted and once we get the funding secured. But I will come back to that at a later stage. You probably will remind me about it. Thank you.
Councillor Nisbet, your question.
It's not a question, it's such a comment.
Okay, do you want to, if it's a comment, do you want to just do it in the debate section then?
Okay, no bother, thank you.
I'll bring you in first, okay?
Right, thank you.
Councillor Reid, it's a question.
Yes, it is, Chair. It's a question. Page 82, paragraph 9. The estimate is it's 44 million pounds, give or take. What optimism bias have we put on that, and is that included in that? If you don't know what an optimism bias is, it's when the government or any public organisation gets so enthusiastic about something that they say, oh yes, it'll take 2 years and £20 million, in 10 years and £200 million later, it's still not done. So I understand we do use those calculations, and I was just wondering, does that include what percentage of optimism bias is in that? And if it's an optimism bias isn't in that, when will it be put in there? And because these things are important, because when you're looking at whether it's worth doing or not, you know, if at £50 million, it's probably worth doing, but at £85 million, it probably isn't. So that's kind of where I am.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. As far as I am aware, we have some contingencies included in that cost. I don't have the number on the top of my head what that optimism is, but I'm sure there will be further cost increase due to inflation and the current circumstances. It's really hard to estimate the cost of anything. We are struggling with inflation on all of the front lines. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm able to confirm that the new way of writing business cases includes a provision in for factoring the point you made about optimisation and optimal biasing and negative bias as well. It is a standard process on new business case approaches. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's the end of any questions. So I'll move into debate on this, and Councillor Nisbet wished to say something.
No, I just support this report because in the past the small businesses have really suffered. They're not getting the footfall as what we wanted. And at the moment, because of road closures on both Coupon Road and Avocall Road, so I really do support this report.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? I've got. You've seconded it, Councillor Dickinson. Shall I bring you in towards the end? Is that okay? I'll go to Councillor Reid, then to Councillor Watson. Councillor Reid.
Okay, thanks for that. This has been going on a long time. My administration started this and chose one route, and it ran into the sand. The Labour Party administration tried another route, which was probably the best one, and probably still is, but the Land Assembly has just proved too difficult. So where we are is the least worst option, really. It's not a relief road in that sense of the word. It's just going to make getting out of Blythe from the south end easier because it's a dual carriageway instead of a single road. I quite like the idea that you've chopped off the Laverick Hall Hill and we're going to go straight onto the Three Horseshoes roundabout, which is good. I am worried about the £44 million, and one of the reasons my administration didn't get it done was because they couldn't get the money, and one of the reasons the Labour Party administration couldn't get it done was because we couldn't get the money. And 44, you can add another with inflation and all the rest of that, it's going to be £50 million worth of road by the time we get there, if it gets there. It seems to me to be taking a long time. It's going to take a year. We've decided what the route is. We're going to take a year to draw the plans up. Now, I would have thought that, when you're building the road, you just draw a line. And the road is a road is a road. How difficult can it be to get planning permission? But anyway, we're talking about February 2026. So this is a long time for the good folk of Blythe to be suffering, as we've already heard. The road closures at the minute, it just makes it a nightmare. When we travel back to Blythe tonight, we're going to get to the top of the Laverick Hall Road. The traffic is going to start there. and you're going to have to go all the way down to the beach to access Blythe. So it just seems to me to be a long time coming, and you know, I accept my share of the responsibility for it not being built yet. But you know, I hope we can get on with it quicker than this. I hope the government, I hope the last thing that Boris Johnson does, which should be tomorrow morning probably, I hope that he signs the piece of paper and releases the money so we can get on with this, because we need it. We need it. You know, to be a modern town, you need proper roads in and out. And we don't need a railway station, definitely not. But we need this road. And can I just say, the really good thing is the little link at the top with Ogle Drive and Tynedale and all the rest of that stuff. I'm glad you've been able to sneak that in, because I think it will actually help quite a lot. Because there is no solution for Coupon Road unless you're really going to start, you know, tearing up pavements and knocking houses down, and there is no solution. And this is only a partial solution. But hey, we've got to take the chances we get. So please push on with it as quick as you can before we have a change of government.
Councillor Watson.
I would echo a lot of what Councillor Reid has just said there, but I would just like to ask, that was in my initial question that I've deferred till now, please can we ensure that we keep the people of Blythe informed? It's their town, they're frustrated, it's every day on social media how frustrated they are by all the roadworks. They need to be kept fully informed. Already see from this report that the public consultation was supposed to be on the 22nd of June, which is coming to us in July. So let's just make sure that we get that information out there, that they know about the consultation that's happening at the end of July, and that people are fully informed throughout. Thank you.
Councillor Wearmouth.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wasn't going to speak, and then Councillor Reid has sort of... Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we should have had it probably in announcements. I think that the PM did sign a very big cheque for Northumberland just last night, or someone certainly did in Treasury, for British Volt, 100 million, and it was confirmed in PMQs today. So fantastic news for Northumberland there. I'm sure that you agree, Councillor Reid. In terms of the timeline, submitting a planning application within a year with a lot of geotechnical investigations and all those things that have to inform road design, and whether you have to swerve around mining, historic mining things and so on, I'm sure that that's a reasonable time frame. Actually, I would hope that Rob can replicate, without any pressure to Rob, the excellent timeline that he achieved with British Volt and with JDR Cables and others, that maybe we can turn around a planning application, a planning decision faster, if indeed it's coming to us and not to the government or the inspectorate, which I don't think it does at this length, but I stand to be corrected. And I think it's important to note that we did an awful lot of work, and Stuart McNaughton as an officer has done an awful lot of work on this various iterations of this route, and has done a lot of work with Transport for the North. It's a priority project for Transport for the North. It's a priority project for the government, and long may that continue, and long may the government continue as well, for years and years and years to come. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you very much, Chair. As somebody who doesn't live in Blythe, the congestion for those people that live in Blythe is a nightmare. But there's also the fringe of where that congestion falls out on, and it comes onto the Spine Road, the main road coming from Newcastle. And I know we've got some poorly signage along there to try and control our traffic. I think that when we start making these plans, that we have to think about the wider scope of how it affects other people. And I know that there's been one or two accidents along there. So can I request that we look at the Spine Road as quickly as we possibly can, get some proper signage down there, And same again, coming back to my fellow councillor, let's get some education and work with local residents, because that's who it affects more than anything else. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Have you got any more, or can I move to Councillor Dickinson as a second? Councillor Riddle.
I just want to highlight the fact that this does include a 3-metre wide cycle path for the entire length. And, you know, we do take cycling seriously now in Northumberland. Also, you know, in addressing a comment that was made about congestion in Blythe, as Richard said, you've got investment and we're going to have some pain for a lot of gain. So I'm afraid that, you know, it's inevitable that there's some disruption, but we'll do our best to keep it to a minimum.
There's no more to speak with. Councillor Morford, yes, because you was a question rather than let you in.
I was just wondering if I could just explain what I meant by giving cyclists priority at junctions. Because I understand that there's going to be a 3-metre wide segregated cycle path, and that's great. But if it stops at every single side road and the cyclist has to give way to traffic, they're not going to use it. They're just going to cycle on the road, which just creates more tension between cyclists and motorists. So there needs to be priority for cyclists at junctions.
If there's no more, I'll go to Councillor Dickinson, then I'll go to Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Councillor Plodshire, I beg your pardon.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Dickinson.
Oh, no, it is me.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry,
Gosh,
I'm just
I've one
warbling.
behind me before. I've got
Do-
somebody
do-
tell me it's me and then not me, and then Councillor Reid steals my joke. But I had planned to go and see Rishi and, you know, but he's not there anymore. However, this is great news for Blythe. As Jeff said earlier, you know, it's been through several administrations, things change, things develop. Blythe has flourished in various ways, and this is a consequence of that, and we need to work together to make sure it's achieved. And we will, and that's why I seconded it. It's really important for Blythe, it's really important for the town, the small independent traders, but also the community that live there and the residents who suffer every day. But we need a lot of money to do it. It's recognised in the report. I welcome the fact that it's got a resident consultation in there again, so we can go back and explain why original routes have been altered or changed, because things do change and parcels of land become solar farms and things, which create issue to original plans. So it is welcome news for Blythe, which is why the Labour Party support. Thank you.
Okay, and then Councillor Plodshire to sum up.
There is not much which I can add to what Councillor Reid and Councillor Dickinson has said and other members. Just as a portfolio holder and local residents, I would like to ask you to support the recommendations. It's a really important project, and I hope we will agree that unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been proposed by Councillor Plodshire. It's been seconded by Councillor Dickinson. Can I have a show of hands those recommendations? And I think it's going to be unanimous, but I'll do the usual thing. Those against? Those abstaining? Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'll now move to item 10 on the agenda, which is a report of the outcomes of the reviews conducted by the Storm Arwin Task and Finish Group, which is on page 87 to 122 of the printed agenda pack. I'm going to invite Councillor Jeff Reid, who's the chair of the Communities in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee, to present this report.
There we are. Thank you. Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank everybody that contributed, the people that came to speak to us, the members that turned up to quiz the people that turned up. Also Sean Nicholson, who was instrumental in pulling all the words together and teasing out the recommendations we came up with, and Helen Hines for being there, advising us of some of the more technical things we talked about. So I actually think this is a prime example of how we can all work together. We can actually bury our political differences and work on something and come up with some meaningful recommendations. And I hope you will all support them. We tried to make certain that the things we did recommend were things we could actually do, rather than pie in the sky stuff that, you know, asking third parties to do things there was no chance of them ever doing. But there are the recommendations in here are things like making certain that any contract that we let to a care home has actually got an emergency plan in there, because there was, there were a few things that went wrong because the people who run the homes haven't actually got an up-to-date plan. So that, the whole exercise I found very refreshing. People came and they were open and honest. They were certainly asked tough questions, but they took it in good humour, and we listened to what they said, and it's distilled in the report. So I do hope that this could be the start of something rather than just, well, that's that done. Let's hope that we can actually come back to its scrutiny and see that those recommendations that we've passed have actually been embedded. We do have a winter communication plan. We do tell residents how they can help themselves in emergencies. And I would hope that this is kind of the start of other task and finish things. The main problem we had was because of the trees, and we perhaps need to look at tree management. We perhaps need to think about what's going on climate-wise, and ash dieback is a thing that's sort of coming to the front now, and you'll see, I'm sure, in some of the streets that you've got, that ash trees aren't coming out fully, and so that's a sign that they're on the way out. We've got millions, we are responsible for millions and millions of trees, and we perhaps just need to think about what husbandry we can apply to all that to keep the power lines clear, to keep the roads clear. And so let's just work together again to think about these things that affect our residents more deeply than you think. And so I would just ask you to accept the recommendations, encourage scrutiny to come back to them to make sure that they're implemented, certainly the ones that the council are responsible for, and maybe chase on the other businesses to make certain that when we write to them and say, these are our recommendations, we would like you to do this, let's make sure we do get a response from them. Let's keep the conversation going, and let's just hope in the end that this was pointless, because we never have such a bad weather experience again. But I think we all know that in the situation we find ourselves in now, this is going to be more common than we would care for it to be. So thank you very much for your indulgence, Chair.
I take that as you as moving those recommendations.
I think I probably moved about 3 times.
Yes, that's right. So have we got a seconder for that? Councillor Mather will second that. Right, is there any questions on that? No questions. All right, I'll go to debate then. And I'll go to, and I'll just remind members, it's 5 o'clock now. I do appreciate it's a very important issue, but if we can try and make it as brevity, the brevity of your comments, I got there in the end. Thank you. As short as possible, that would be useful. But so, Councillor Dickinson, you had your hand up first.
Talking a brief. Just to thank Councillor Reid for the sterling work of that task and finish group. I think it shows how task and finish groups can really tease things out that are important, but also that members from all sides have different communities that they represent and had very different issues within the storm. So it was really important that all of those people participated in that task and finish group, because every community had a different issue. I had members of my community with 2 weeks plus no electricity, old people suffering, etc., etc. And Jeff kindly took all my emails and all the other things and collated them all without me having to do very much. So thanks very much for that, Jeff. But also pay tribute to Communities Together staff, council staff, everybody who mobilised to help communities help themselves, because communities came out in force during that storm to help themselves and to make sure that the most vulnerable in their communities were supported. So real hats off to the people in those communities and the organisations that did the work. But really important, Jeff, that this is monitored, that the actions are followed up, but also that we press on people like some of the social housing people who still have tenants currently with leaking roofs and all sorts of other things nearly 6 months on from the original issue. And also the fact that, you know, Northern Power Grid continue to take everyone's money and need to invest in some of the infrastructure, some of the pre-World War infrastructure in Northumberland that is supposed to survive some of these spectacular events, which you quite rightly have pointed out will happen more and more. So just fully welcome this and more of this work, please, because this is a clear example of how when people are working together and are allowed to express opinion, create really good reports.
Councillor Sanderson, do you wish to come in at this stage?
I'll give way, sir.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, it is, as has been said, a very good constructive report with good action plans. The only thing I would add, and even though it's not explicitly put in this report, I'm sure it was picked up, that when there's the relief effort, that when you're in a town like Berwick and the efforts are going on in that community, there are resources that should be used to help the rural outlying areas. I know later on myself and Councillor Mather were in touch to do that support, but just to pick up that there are towns with better resources and less likely to be cut off than the outlying rural areas. But I'm sure that was picked up.
Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, I attended one of the inequalities events yesterday, and the speaker, Cormac Russell, I believe it was, spoke about the impact of extreme heat on communities. And I think if we have a plan like this, it has to be a plan that's adaptable across whatever weather conditions we have. And I think we all are going to have to get used to the idea that extreme heat is going to be an incredibly dangerous experience and regular occurrence for some of our elderly, vulnerable residents. So I just want to make sure that we're embedding every potential weather crisis in this plan. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's quite right that people are thanking the staff and officers here, and especially and do not forget the fire service, the part they played in this. But the sad thing about this is that the criticism that the County Council took from members of the public, which was totally unfounded. What happened was, because the County Council is a type of organisation that is capable of dealing with large numbers of people, and organisations like Power Grid, they cannot deal with large numbers of people. It was the County Council that came in for the stick. And we don't generate the power, we don't distribute it, we don't put the broken poles back up. But I just want to say, people are quite rightly thanking the staff and officers here, but when you're actually out there in it, and you see members of our staff and officers out in really bad conditions, snow, sleet, obviously strong winds, and there's an officer sitting over there who probably will not like me to name her, but I saw her walking up a road in the very southern part of my division on the Durham border, and a really muddy road, Jackie, and you were really enjoying yourself. When I saw people like this out, that you're more used to seeing walking around the corridors in County Hall, out in the hills in southern Northumberland, we can't emphasise too much the work that our staff and officers did and the unjust criticism that they came in for, because they did absolutely everything they possibly could on the type of storm that was very unusual. We don't get storms like that. Up in the hills, those of us who are from the hills, we're used to snowstorms, and we can handle snowstorms very easy. But when you're getting gales from the north, that is something totally different. So I just want to put on record for everybody here the thanks to our staff and officers and the fire services, and how they worked so well together and worked with the communities, because they did an awful lot.
And I'll bring in Councillor Dunn. I do apologise. I was darting around. Lots been going on this afternoon.
Thank you, Chair. Apology accepted. I just want to fully endorse the recommendation for the retention of the community support or the COVID officers. I think we all saw how effective these support officers were in tackling the problems on the front line in our communities.
and they will still be invaluable going forward, I think. It's also vital that we recognise the value of our town and parish councils and that we strengthen our communications with them. Storm Arwin undoubtedly caused enormous damage throughout the county, and there's no doubt in my mind that there'll be more of this extreme weather to come. However, only last week in my ward in Linemouth, the village suffered horrendous flooding in some areas. In fact, I thought we'd got a new swimming pool at one stage. But thankfully, one of our new gully cleaners attended very quickly, and I have to thank the team for all the hard work that they put in on that occasion. However, these same areas flood regularly and under much less severe conditions. So we need a long-term plan to improve the failing infrastructure that we've got and that we currently have to put up with. We need to improve that going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Mather, would you like to come in at this stage, or would you like to come in? You've seconded it. Would you like to come in later? Come in the end. Okay. Anyone else wish to? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Good comprehensive report. Slightly disappointed at just one little bit of it. We've asked mainly the electrical companies to look at their maintenance, where, in point of fact, I think we should be looking at them to put the infrastructure in so it's more resilient for this sort of thing, because we're all in agreement this is going to happen more and more. So I would have liked to see some of the mega bucks they're making passed into infrastructure improvements for our county.
Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak? That I'll go to Councillor Mather now then. Councillor Mather.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed being a part of this Task and Finish group. I think it was excellent and it was good working together, and I thoroughly enjoyed being able to investigate some of these companies. I want to echo what's already been said about the staff of this council. Every council department that we brought in, there was far more positives outweighed the negatives that we could find. The staff really shone through and worked 7 days a week in long hours, and I think that was testament to it. I was quite critical at the time and at some of the decisions that were made about declaring a major incident. And to me, doing this investigation as a Task and Finish group really showed that it was the sheer lack of communication between outside bodies and this council that let us down. And this report goes somewhere to hopefully fixing that. And I think that all companies that came and spoke to us would admit, or did admit, that the communication failings changed our way of decision making, and if we'd had all the information at the time, our decisions would have been different. We can't let it happen again. That's why we did this report. And part of this, I really want to mention Helen Hines, and we've already started doing a trial project, working with parish councils, and we've had a meeting in the Wooler ward to work at how town and parish councils can work with the county by distributing information and doing that quick response. And I think that's going to be very important going forward, and that's my point of dealing with any type of emergency or weather event. It's not just about this one storm, it's about going ahead in the future and working together, and that's something we find incredibly important to support. So I support this report.
Thank you for that. It's been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour of those recommendations? I think it's going to be unanimous again, but I'll do the same thing. Those against, those abstaining. Thank you, that's unanimous. I will now go on to item 11 on the agenda, and hopefully this will be a nice and quick one, but I've got to read something out, which is a report of the Democratic and Electoral Services Manager in relation to the independent co-opted members of the Council Audit Committee, which is at page 123 to 126 of the printed agenda pack. I will be presenting the report. The report is a report to seek Council's agreement to extend the appointment of the independent co-opted members currently sitting on the Council's Audit Committee. Members will see from the report this is in line with the CIPFA guidance. The Council has appointed 2 independent members of Audit Committee since 2013. This has brought additional financial skills and expertise to Audit Committee, an additional beneficial challenge. In February 2020, 2 independent co-opted members were appointed by Council, Mr Peter Topping and Mr Stephen Watson, for a period of 2 years. Then in July 2021, Mr Watson was appointed Independent Chair of Audit Committee for a period of 2 years. Mr Topping's appointment has now expired and the Council need to determine whether his appointment is extended. I therefore propose that the Council extend the appointment of Mr Peter Topping as an Independent Co-opted Member of Audit and Mr Stephen Watson as Independent Co-opted Chair of Audit Committee for a period of 2 years to July 2024. I understand that this has been communicated to Councillor Towns as the Vice Chair of that committee and that he has no objections. And I move the recommendations to, I need to appoint Councillor Towns as a Vice Chair. Has that already been done?
That's already done.
That's already done. So I move the recommendation to that effect. I'm moving that. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Reid is seconding that. All those in favour?
Chair, for minute purposes, 31st of July.
Yes, beg your pardon. Yes, for the minute purposes, it says 2 years to the 31st of July. No, it says July in the report, it's the 31st of July. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you for indulging me on reading that and making sure we got that right and making sure I said the 31st of July as well. I'm now going to turn to item 12 on the agenda, which is to receive the minutes, the minutes of the cabinet meetings held on Tuesday the 12th of April, Tuesday the 26th of April, Tuesday the 10th of May, and Tuesday the 7th of June. Do we receive those? Agreed. Thank you. Received and noted. I'm now going to turn to item 13 on the agenda, which to receive the meetings of the following committees. Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny, page 157, and that is Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move the minutes of the meeting on the 11th of April 2022, page 157.
There's agreed. Thank you. Then I move to Family and Children's Services, page 161 to 168, Councillor Wayne Daly.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the minutes of both meetings on the 5th and 26th of May of the Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which are contained on pages 161 to 168.
Thank you very much. I agree. Then I'll go over to Jeff Reid, Chairman of the Health and Wellbeing. Sorry, beg your pardon. So that's back in the day, isn't it? It's the Communities in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
You must be sick of me standing up. Anyway, we move the minutes of the Community in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Wednesday, the 1st of June 2022 at 2 o'clock, page 169 to page 173.
All those in favour, all agreed? Councillor Gallagher, did you wish to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Just on that report on page 173, at the top paragraph, it says that that local communities and local parishes and town councils will be notified and taken along with this. I rang both parish councils and spoke to both clerks this morning, and there's been no communication there. Can we improve that and take these people along with it?
No, that's no.
Thank you.
I hope there'll be action on that. I will then go on to Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny, page 175 to 182, and that is Councillor Veronica Jones.
Thank you. I'd like to move the minutes of the Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee of the 31st of May. Thank you.
Are they agreed? Yeah. Agreed. Right, I'm going to go to the Health and Wellbeing Board, and unusually I'm going to go to, because it's only Councillor who was present on that day, who's here, to Councillor Sanderson on that one.
Thank you very much. I move the minutes of this meeting.
Are they agreed? Thank you for that. And then move to page 191, the Audit Committee, and I'm looking, Councillor Oliver, can you present those?
Thank you, Chair. I move the minutes of the Audit Committee on Wednesday, the 25th of May, pages 191 to 202.
Are They agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, and thank you for doing that so swiftly. I move on to item 14 of the agenda, which is to note the delegated decision at page 203 of the printed agenda. Is that noted? Agreed. Right, so I'm now, thank you very much for that. I'm now going to go back to item 8. Item 8 on the agenda, which is, page 63, everybody, yes, which is the report of the Interim Director of Governance and Monitoring Officer in relation to registering interest and membership of organisations at page 63 to 76 of the printed agenda pack. I'd like to invite the leader to present the report. Leader.
Thank you very much. I don't propose to say anything other than you've already received in this report. You've also received some other advice, I believe. And all I will say is that I think we've had a veritable feast of information, and hopefully that will allow us to deal with this matter speedily and well. And I would just put the recommendations as they are.
Is that being seconded? Yes, Councillor Hill is seconding that. All right. Right. Questions?
What is the recommendation?
Yeah, I've jumped the gun a little bit. We need to suspend Council Procedure Rules 14.2 of the Council Constitution for the reasons set out in paragraph 11 of this report and or other reasons specified to members. Do we agree to that?
What page
is that
is this
notice that we've agreed on that? Yeah, okay. Right, so...
I'm terribly sorry. I've made an error. I'm really sorry. You'll see that the recommendations aren't just recommendations, it's a choice. Now, that's the deliberate error, and thank you for letting me do that, Barry. So I'm going to say to you all, here are the recommendations. Please choose one. Is that right?
And what are they?
And what are they? You may well ask.
Do you want to read them?
Yep, I'm going to read them to you. Thank you. So we are talking about suspending Council Procedure Rule.
Done that one.
We've done that one. Alternatively, refer the matter to the Council Standards Committee for further consideration. If you're minded to agree the recommendation 1, which is to do it today, to adopt the revised wording as attached at Appendix 1 to be included in for the Members' Code of Conduct. So it's either send this off to Standards to have a look at, or do it now and come to a decision today. I hope that's clear, and I apologise for getting it wrong.
So is somebody going to propose one of those?
We proposed it.
Jeff, read again.
So, no, leader, do you wish to propose one of them?
No.
No.
Right, then I'll do it. First of all, leader, I'd like to shake your hand, but perhaps that's a joke too far. So I think what we need to do, we just need to get this out of the way now. So I would like the council to resolve to suspend standing orders, then adopt the wording as in Appendix 1, and I think it's only the last few pages, it's only the last few words in Appendix 1 that just says if you're a member of any organisation, you need to declare it. It's only those last few words on that page.
Although it's agreed it needs to.
I'm going to go back to number 1. Sorry to do this. It's been proposed. It was proposed, I think, by myself, wasn't it? No, it was proposed by you, Councillor Sanderson. It was seconded by Councillor Reid. That bit. Can we just have a show of hands that we suspended that? I'm just being kept right on this.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to retract. Sorry, I've been thrown by events today, and we've now had a proposal by Councillor Reid, and that being seconded by Councillor Hill. Okay. Do we have any debate on questions on that matter? Just debate. It's going to debate. Councillor Wearmouth.
Thanks. So, if we're going on this track, I'd like to propose an amendment. Can I do that at this stage? Yes. Thank you. Smashing. So, if you're minded to adopt that recommendation, then I should like to tag on another one. and this is about administration of online and social media. And I'd like it to be a requirement that people declare administrator, editor or similar rights for any online social media where it is not clear from the information freely available to the public. This includes all websites, Facebook pages, groups, etc., Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts and other such social media. Thank you.
So that has been moved and seconded. I now move to debate on that. Councillor Hill, you have your hand up.
Chair, thank you. I just want to say that I fully support the work that's been done on this and to fully transparent declare all memberships of organisations and not to single out Freemasons. I'm happy to with the amendment as well. The only thing I would ask is, first of all, because we took advice on the Freemasonry thing, if there's legal advice, if there's, I don't know if any other council does that. So I'd be interested to get the monitoring officer's advice on that. And also you need to put a time frame on it. So if anyone is administrating a Facebook page and they went off tonight or they went off 6 months ago, they should maybe, have you ever administrated? I think you need to be careful about the timing because the problems are obvious.
Chair, if I may just respond to that, I would wish that my recommendation, apologies, monitoring officer, I would wish that my recommendation became effective, immediate, on the vote, and so if you've got any such pages, not going to anyone in particular, delete them now.
Councillor Murphy.
Sorry, I'm just seeking clarity. Did you say, Councillor Wearmouth, that if we have anonymous Facebook, Twitter accounts or anything like that, we must declare them as well as public ones? Okay, I would ask, how on earth are you going to police that? How can you possibly police whether I've got 100 identities on social media? I don't think we should put forward motions or proposals or amendments that aren't actually able to be followed up on. Otherwise, as Councillor Reid would say, it's a bit of a waste of time. Sorry.
So, may I respond to that, Chair, through you?
I'm going to allow you to respond. The debate's getting a bit...
Where it deserves better than the phone.
And then I think the monitoring officer may wish to answer some points as well, but I'll allow you to speak, but we're getting a little bit out of kilter on this.
I do appreciate your generosity, Chair. Thank you. Ultimately, Councillor Murphy, you know, hopefully people will be honest and they will take to their declarations pages and they will fill those in. If they don't, so be it on them. And if they slip up and accidentally stick their name on when they're home drunk at night and accidentally reveal themselves to the public, woe betide them, because they can then be taken through the standards process. Or if people already know that those people exist that are administrating those groups, well, they'll be found wanting as well, presumably. So thank you.
I'm bringing the monitoring officer.
I moved the motion. It was seconded by Councillor Hill. Yeah. Yeah. But if it's an amendment, do I not have to accept it?
No.
So as I understand, no.
Really?
Yes, as I understand.
I better dust me copy of the Constitution off then.
You can't, well, okay. I'm going to bring the monitoring officer in at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, in response to Councillor Hill, you can actually, as an authority, agree any other registrable interests which aren't in the statute, so long as they are in line with openness and transparency. You'll see in the report, paragraph 3, we have mentioned the openness and transparency regulations. You know, we have actually said that, you know, it is up to councillors. Sorry, it's not at paragraph 3. It's actually in the key issues of the report. That councillors should adhere to openness and transparency in line with the Nolan principles. I do agree, it could be difficult to police something like this, but it's difficult to police a lot of the code of conduct matters in any event. Councillor, if I just take you to page 13, paragraph, sorry, let me just start again, page 66, paragraph 13 onwards, that gives you, Councillor Hill, the the answer that you were looking for with regard to a personal interest that should be registered that aren't in statute. So it's completely lawful to put forward that recommendation as an amendment to the recommendations here. There's one thing I do ask is that for minute purposes that recommendation is handed to Democratic Services so they've got it in writing, please. As the Chair I didn't mention that as he took your amendment. And through you, Chair, Councillor Reid, that you're absolutely right, you did propose, you did propose the first, the actual amendment on page, seconded by Councillor Hill, but an amendment was put forward, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Now we are talking about whether to accept the amendment. So you can come back at some point, you know, as a right of reply, whether you wish to accept that amendment or not. Councillor Wearmouth can't actually come back on it. He has reserved his right to speak to the end, but I think he has spoken already. So, Chair, I hope that's outlined the process and procedure.
Okay, I'm going to return to the debate, and I've got I'm going to take three here. I'm going to take Councillor Oliver, then Councillor Ezel-Shelvin, then Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I think this is I think all of these developments are very, very welcome. I think, you know, any sort of transparency campaigners in the room should support them, and we are, you know, it is really important that we, as the leader said earlier, that we stamp on bad social media practice. There's a lot of it in Northumberland at town, parish, county council and member of parliament level, and it's simply not acceptable. And when it's hidden behind anonymous Facebook pages or Twitter accounts, it's particularly nasty. So, and it does affect people's lives. It affects people's lives in a very unpleasant, nasty way. So I really support this. I hope everybody will get behind it. There's no reason that any of us in this chamber shouldn't support it. And I call, hopefully everybody can support it fully. We can have true cross-party cooperation on this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ezel-Shelvin.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm very concerned about the nature of the amendment that is being proposed. If I understand correctly, if I'm running as an example, I'm not running, run an anonymous blog, then I should declare it. That is, you know, when we make a rule or a code of conduct, we should also be mindful of how we are going to enforce it. Otherwise, law becomes an ass. Now, imagine Councillor Joe Bloggs, hope there is no Councillor Joe Bloggs here, runs an anonymous blog. This rule dictates that he declare. Now, he can ghostwrite, ask Mrs. Mary Bloggs to run the same blog, and then they can ghostwrite. And what is the purpose? And I don't believe Deputy Leader's assertion that somehow Councillor Joe Bloggs will occasionally make a mistake and we go hammer him. No. That is not the rationale we should have in mind when we are imposing a rule. There has to be a clear-cut mechanism for enforcing. Okay. Now, secondly, my friend here, Councillor Oliver, says everything is nasty. Look, lots of anonymous blogs do spread untruth, but we should fight untruth with truth. Yeah. That is our responsibility. Secondly, if we accept this amendment, we are completely underestimating voter intelligence, right? Now, next, for example, taking my example here, if Mrs. Mary Bloggs runs that one, are we going to put another amendment? If a councillor's wife is an admin, they should declare that as well. This is going too far. So it is very difficult for me to support this one. Thank you.
Right, I've got Councillor Dickinson.
Well, I'm just listening in, considering everyone, because obviously I wasn't expecting it, but, you know, Glenn and I have spoke about this a number of times. I wholly detest anonymous blogs, and I detest what they do to people's mental health. And if anybody in this room is running one, they should take a long, hard look at themselves. But what I can't support is it being from today, because I have lots of evidence of people in this room who were running blogs and posting things about a former leader who was in ill health with cancer, etc., and some most appalling things that his family had to read over and over again. And it was fine at that point. Nobody had an issue with it at that point. And I have screenshots of who those editors were, who posted them, and that can't just start from today, because actually, if you're going to put something forward, you've got to put something forward wholeheartedly and believe in it. And I think we've got some struggling issues here, which Councillor Shelvin's picked up, as have some of the other members, around policing and reality. So, yes, it's a nasty world. People in this room should be well above it, and if they're not, they need to look at themselves. But policing something like that, declaring something like that, wild accusations will continue about who runs what and who does what and who says what and who posts what and who said what about who. And actually, you're never going to prove it any other way. We're going to rely on people's trust, like you said before. And if somebody's running a blog like that, they're not going to put it down because they don't care about what it does to you, Glenn. They don't care about what it does to me. They don't care about what it does to my family, my parents who read it, some of the nasty stuff that's been put out about me over recent weeks, which is an absolute disgrace. And I believe strongly that it participated in the ill health of my dad, who had a stroke, because of lots of the stuff that was put out about me. And I don't want to get upset about it, but it is disgraceful what it does to people. But we've got to be realistic in what we can achieve. But if people in this room play that game, I think they should go elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Before I move on to other speakers, there was mention about the time frame there, and I'm just seeing if that time frame issue is something that might be agreeable to go out. If that, I'll go to Councillor Wearmouth on that.
Chair, thank you. I'm happy. I mean, obviously, there's I guess in reflection, there's a time period where people need to fill forms in and so on and so forth if we're going to adopt this. So, shall we say, what can the monitoring officer suggest me a reasonable time frame where people could come to that and have sufficient time? Because I don't want people to be put on the spot having to do something today. That's quite right, Councillor Dickinson. Thank you.
Of course, through you, Chair, Councillor Dickinson proposed another amendment of a time frame. So I look to you, Councillor Dickinson. What do you think is a reasonable time frame?
2017?
Okay. No, so I would say anything between 7 to 10 days, working days.
I'm happy to accept that. 10 days is fine by me, and as far as I'm 10 working days, and as far as I'm concerned, it can only be relevant to something that you're declaring now. The same as were you apparently, you know, in terms of the wider report, a member of the Masons. And I would just pose one question, if I can be really cheeky, Chair, which is people seem to be really concerned that we won't be able to find who, as Councillor Shelvin has mentioned, who they are. How will you know who is a member of the WI or who is a member of the Freemasons? They're apparently notoriously secret. So, based on what I'm told. So is there some master list that we're going to go to and say, there? I don't think so. You're always depending on the integrity of members to describe what it is that they're members of, in this instance, what they're administrating. So 10 days gives people time to get the house in order, if they want to abandon whatever it is that they might be doing currently even. It gives them time to fill in the forms. We can get the reset that you all want, and we can move forward. Sound fair? Yeah.
Before I bring in other speakers, it's 20 to 6. I think it's reasonable we could get this done by 6 o'clock. So I'm not going to extend the meeting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, we got the three speakers I'd seen, Councillor Dale, Councillor Oliver, and then Councillor Murphy. And then I'll come into other people. And yeah, Councillor Kennedy, I forgot you, but I'll come to you afterwards, okay? Councillor Dale.
Thank you. Can I just say, first of all, I'm really horrified that the discussion about blogs has taken all this time to come to council. And I wonder why. I've suffered at the hands of Facebook pages since 2014. I've had lawyers in. When one night I got 254 messages on my computer. Appalling. And I know who they came from. I know who it was set up. It went to the lawyers. And the lawyers found out who they were. And it's never stopped. I have got the most horrendous Facebook pages calling me all kinds of things. Lies. I have been ill. But I've seen some suffer and badly suffer. I've got a burn on my foot. A Facebook page. Somebody tagged me in and said, Anne, isn't this appalling? It's the most dreadful thing I've ever seen. And I'm going to look at some of these people here who are actually standing here and saying it has to stop. Why? Why didn't you stop it beforehand? Why is it all of a sudden? I've seen people hurt. Badly hurt. Lies, all kinds of things spread about people that are untrue, shared and shared and shared. And what my lawyer found out was the names of those behind it. And there's no getting away from them. They're all there in black and white because legally they can find out. And the MP had have made a full apology and some people were sacked. But you know, when you sit there and say these things, I haven't forgotten what you did to me, what you did to my family, because you can never take back the things you have said and done, wherever you are. And if you think that I would actually let people, and I look at people and I understand how awful it is, but for those people, and I can name them, and Councillor Sanderson, you've had it, but you haven't had it as long as I've had it. And I'll send you all the things I've got. I'll send you my legal documents and everything, and you can see the names on them. And you should actually stand down as councillors. Because what you have done to some people, innocent people, some are dead now, and all for a bit of fun. I know Councillor Sanderson hasn't liked the stuff he's had put in. I'll share you some of the stuff I've had. And do you want the 254 letters? No. It was all lies too. And it hadn't stopped. It didn't stop. It didn't stop through when you were in control. It went on and on and on. You had all kinds of things going through this council that were wrong, incorrect, lies, all played out on Facebook. Fun. Well, it wasn't as fun, and you've hurt a lot of people. Now, it's no point in sitting there and smiling and saying it's not me, because we've got all the records. And I agree with Councillor Sanderson, it's got to stop. But he could have stopped it beforehand, and some of you could have stopped it beforehand, because you knew what was going on. Can I just say to you that either we all grow up and grow forward, because it's destroyed my life for a while. Did it matter to you? No. But now I'm angry, actually. And we've got standing orders. We're talking about Freemasons. I don't know why this suddenly has come up. But actually, why can't we be honest and just say what we are? I'm not a member of the WI. I used to be a long time ago. I'm no longer. But I'm here to serve my people. And I want to play, and I don't want to play with people who don't play who want to play dishonest games. or called people behind their backs and sponge all over. It's not on. And I'm sorry, Councillor Sanderson, your party is the one party to blame. And I know people have stuck up for me and said, you can't carry on treating Anne like that. And how many nervous breakdowns do you expect people to have? It's not nice. And you've had it now. And I hope you can turn around and tell your party to behave yourself. And some of those people who behave badly, and I'll name them all, I've got them all, our lawyers have got them all, will stand up, put their hands up and say, grow up. Because it's unacceptable.
I've got Councillor Oliver. And can I just remind members, it's 17:44. I'm not going to extend this meeting, so I want this sorted by 6 o'clock.
It'll be very brief. It was just a question. I mean, I support everything that's been said. I think we all, there seems to be wide cross-party support across the room that this all needs to stop, what's gone on before. But this is just a question in terms of clarification. I think any Facebook page or Twitter account can have a sort of impressum at the top or a pinned post or whatever. I think where people are transparent about who's running those pages. So, for example, the Northumberland Conservatives page, there's probably 4 or 5 people in this room who post on that. We would just list them on the top, presumably, and that would apply to the Labour page and other pages. And that way, there's different ways of dealing with the transparency. You wouldn't need to put that in your declaration because it would be there on the page. Now, I just wanted to clarify that that was what was meant.
I know you don't want to suspend standing orders, but I feel I didn't know this was going to come up. And I have an alternative amendment to put forward. I've listened to some of the pain in this room today, and I'm shocked, really shocked at what's gone on among some of you councillors over the years, and I think it's a disgrace. However, I would like to see us, instead of dragging up all this pain from the past, we're not part of that. Us new councillors, we don't want to be. My alternative amendment would be, let's call a stop to it today. Let's pull together a group of councillors who are not always the deputies and the leaders. Let's go for cool heads, people who are nice to people, treat people respectfully, cross-party group of councillors, and let's do a deep dive into social media, look at what we find and start actually feeding into this council recommendations about conduct, draw individuals' attention to where they have breached public principles and actually hold those individuals to account. Are you saying it's too long, my amendment?
What I'm going to say to you, I'm going to finish the debate on this one first.
Right.
If this passes, then it passes. If not, we can go to another amendment.
Okay, so I sit down now, yeah?
I'll come back to you should it come. I'd be useful if that's written down for me. Right. I'll just say that, okay? Right. Councillor Kennedy. The time is 17:47. I've seen your hand, Councillor Grimshaw, and I've got Councillor Renner Thompson and I've got Councillor Grimshaw. Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, so first of all, I've only, Facebook-wise, I've just got myself, and I don't run anything. So, and I must be very, very fortunate because I've been a councillor for 19 years, and I have to admit I've never had people coming after me in the way I've heard today. So, I mean, it must be horrendous, and I've got real empathy to hear those councillors who've had this as bad as I have. I've got to admit, I've had one or two things said to us, but never anything really nastily like, I'm hearing from, from Glenn, from Scott, certainly from Andale and others. So I've got no experience of that, I must admit, and I don't run other sites and other stuff like that. But what I would say is the following, and it's just really to help Councillor Eccleshelvin, to be honest, is that, and I think this is a change, and this is what I've noticed, being a councillor for 19 years, and at that time, there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no nothing. So this is a new vehicle that we've never experienced before, and it has come along, and we've all went, oh, this is good, because you can actually communicate with your community very easily and cheaply and quickly. Whereas in the past, it was all on a bit of paper, and it takes you ages to get it round, etc., etc. And normally it was out of date by the time you'd done it. But the point I will try and get over about this is that you as a councillor, if you put a piece of paper out into the public domain and through your residence, you have to have that imprint, as Councillor Richard Wearmouth has highlighted there. You have to have an imprint saying, this is from Councillor Derek Kennedy of this address, and an imprint, as it was, and it was printed here, etc., etc., etc. Legally, you must do that. I couldn't just chuck something out and start having a go at somebody on a piece of paper without putting that imprint on there saying I was the source. Understand? And you've all done it. You've all been councillors now.
Raise a point of order. You only actually have to do that during the election period. You don't actually have to do that at other times.
I don't think that's true, to be honest. I think the imprint has to be there. But either way. But I mean, I've got to admit, when I put mine out, I've always put the imprint on during non-election time, just so anybody can come to me and go, right, this is the source of this has come from me. So I think that's a really important thing, is to go, this has come from a certain quarter communicating a certain message. And also, when you're doing your social media, what I'm trying to get at here is really what the suggestion here by Councillor Wearmouth is to do exactly the same, is to put that imprint as going, where is the source of this message? The source of this message is from, this councillor. Now, I issue lots of messages over social, I do MailChimp, but on the bottom of mine all have, this has come from Derek Kennedy, lives at this address. And if you want to get in touch with me, here is my email address. And I get those messages back saying, Derek, don't necessarily agree with you, but you've communicated it. That's fine. But that is the key message here. It's about messaging and being responsible for your messaging. I think this is right. Timing-wise, I'm happy to be led, and I'm sure there must be something. We can't be the only council who've now just stumbled across this. There must be loads of councils who have had this debate. And I mean, listening to what's been heard today, some of these terrible things have happened for many, many years, and I've got great empathy for those who have suffered. I've never had that, I must admit. But I think one of the things we could do is go to the LGA and try and get some copy or standard terms that we can adopt and apply and go, instead of us trying to invent the wheel, actually apply that. But I think it's really important, this. I think it's really, because it's a Wild West out there, to be honest. It is the Wild West. And if people want to do bad behaviours, and remember, we are councillors, people have elected you because they trust you. They trust you. Every time they put a cross on there, that is somebody going, I trust you to be my representative. You should, all of us should, be looking and going, right, all those people have given a cross to me. Take that and be the right person and do the good things that you're supposed to do. You've got the Nolan principles in front of us, so we all know what those are, just being a good councillor. So that's what this is all about. So I fully support this, but I think maybe, looking at maybe an LGA standard, that must be out there. Thank you.
Before we go any further, it's 17:52. I'm going to propose, and I want to second that we extend this meeting to as far as 6:15. Do I have that agreed? Agreed. Seconded by Councillor Wearmouth, and that's agreed? Agreed. Right. Next speaker is Councillor Renner Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly support the motion and the timing of 7 to 10 days. I look after Anne-Marie Trevelyan's Facebook page, as many of you know. Many of you will have seen the abuse that that MP gets on that Facebook page. and it's often from anonymous accounts, and you can tell an anonymous Facebook account quite obviously because the details are wrong and it hasn't lasted very long and the pictures aren't right. And if people want to disagree with our MPs on either side, they're allowed to do that, but they shouldn't do it behind an anonymous Facebook page. And I know it does impact on our MPs and it does impact on their families. And this is a debate that's happening at a national level as well as us today in this room. You know, politics has existed for thousands of years. The internet's only been there for 20 years and we've only been doing political internet for maybe 5 or 10 years. So it will evolve. I don't think there's much point in going back over the past. I think this is about register of interests going forward. Yes, we can investigate things in the past, but you're just going to drag up old things and we all want to move on from this. And you can't do retrospective registers of interests. If I leave the Freemasons or the WI or whatever I'm in, then it then comes off my register of interests. You only have on your interests what's happening at the present time. So from a practical point of view, I think that's how it works. However, if people wanted to look back in a different format, that's for a different decision.
Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I cannot.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. The thing is, I'm listening to these stories today from councillors who have been, you know, in this abusive situation, and I feel very, very sorry for those who've had to go through this. Sorry, I just waiting for it. Thank you. And I just feel very, very sorry for those who've gone through it for years and years and years and who are currently going through it. And I would just like to ask if there's any support that we can offer some of these members who have actually got ongoing issues, either with it through the past or now or in the future that may suffer. So can we offer some kind of support for these people who are suffering? And it's absolutely appalling, really, that other fellow members have, you know, dealt with situations like this by hiding behind fake posts, because they should be upfront and honest and declare what they have to say. But please, could I just urge, you know, Councillor Sanderson to look at the fact that if anybody, any of our members needs any assistance, it would be very grateful. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
I'm going to come in on that. There were some mental health recommendations we brought forward recently in terms of members' mental health. I think that would cover what you've said there, and I think if we can put a reminder out on that, that would probably be very useful. Time is again ticking, so what I'm going to suggest is Councillor Hardy had his hand up, but then I've got Councillor Reid as who has the original motion. If he wants to speak and a right to reply, I'll let you then in. And then I've got Councillor Wearmouth, and then I really want to finish. I really want to get to the nub of this. So, Councillor Hardy.
It saddens me to hear some of what has been said today, but moving forward, I'm an active member of a charity, and this month I've been asked to look at their social media policy and act accordingly. If I do not, I will no longer be a member of that organisation. Likewise, I'm a member of the Voluntary Forum that has just published its social media policy. This is a driving forward motion. We've seen what's behind us. We need to put in place a social media policy as a council, and we need to adhere to it. Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously something needs to be done, but I'm not convinced that this is the way to do it. What I would hope you would agree to is that your amendment is sent to where the whole thing would have gone to if we voted the other way, which is the matters referred to the Council Standards Committee for further consideration. And the reason I say that, Richard, is because I don't remember all the words you said now. I don't remember the implication. I know the impact that these spiteful, horrible things have on people. But we're just, to kind of, you have it tagged on to something that was quite, in the end, quite innocuous. It's just too much of a rush for me. I want this to be looked at properly and considered properly by the Standards Committee. I can understand the reasons why you're in a rush for this, and I understand people's anxiety. We've heard it, and it's, you know, it's unpleasant when you're put in those situations. But sometimes what you think is a fix isn't a fix. So you do this today, and in 10 days, people amend their declarations of interest. And so you discover that someone has got a Facebook page that was saying wrong or unpleasant or disgraceful things about other people. You haven't mentioned sanctions at all. I mean, what would these people be charged with? What would be the ultimate sanction? What could you ban them from Facebook? Well, you can't. So I'm absolutely behind you as far as getting something done, because it poisons the atmosphere. But I'm not sure that this important amendment that you've tagged on to something that maybe you were looking through the agenda trying to find somewhere to insert it, then I just think that, you know, act in haste, repent at leisure. You honestly, what we need to do is we need to detach the two things now. We need to vote on the thing that Councillor Hill and I proposed and seconded, get that in, and then we need to send your amendment to the Standards Committee. And it'll come back here and we can have a proper debate and we can have proper recommendations, and maybe we can even have some disciplinary action that can be taken. Because at the moment, you're not telling us if you discover something and you report them, we don't know what the Standards Panel can charge them with, and you don't know what the sanctions might be. So what I would say is, please think about what I've said, do it that way, and I'm fairly certain you'll get a unanimous vote, because I'm not going to vote against it, but I can't vote for your amendment attached to my motion.
I think I'm summing up now, is that right? So I think it's really, with respect, Councillor Reid, I think it's really straightforward, what I'm saying. And I don't think there's any real ambiguity about it. If I can touch on the question of standards. So if you were abusive in the chamber, which you never are, to me, let's say, and I put a standards complaint in about you, then it's for standards to decide what the sanction is. And it'll be the same for this as well. It isn't a very complicated thing. Are you a member? Are you... and I will compare and contrast it with the question of membership of the WI. Are you a member of the WI? Yes or no? Dead easy question. Yes or no? Fill it in. Are you, for example, I admin Northumberland Conservatives. I can't remember off the top of my head who else is on the list. I can't remember if we're on the banner, but I will make sure it is. And at election time, I'm always on the list anyway, because as Councillor Kennedy has correctly identified, I have to be on the imprint of that. So I'm on there automatically election time. Councillor Fox is quite correct, just in terms of the clarification. You only need an imprint during election period, but we all put it on anyway in case we forget when it comes to the election time anyway. And it's probably best practice, and usually your name's on there anyway somewhere. But in terms of what I was proposing, it was simply declare administrator, editor or similar rights for all online social media where it is not clear from the information freely available from the public, reflecting Councillor Oliver's point. You don't need to do it if it's your page. What would be the point in that? It's clearly identified as you, so you don't need to faff around with your forms for the sake of that. This includes all websites, Facebook pages, groups, and I'm happy to add in there, if I'm allowed to do this, Profiles, because profiles came up somewhere from Councillor Renner Thompson in terms of profiles coming onto pages and in that sense, etc., to include Facebook, Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, and all other social media. Now, if I can come to Councillor Murphy's point, I think that we've looked at social media in the past and had a working group. I think that that working group should meet again and should have another conversation, but that doesn't need to be the subject of a whole other amendment or anything like that. It just needs to happen. And that's surely part of what has come out of Max Caller anyway, which is to make sure that members are treating members with respect, treating officers with respect, and everybody else with respect. So that's entirely consistent with everything that you've been agreeing for the last few weeks now in terms of implementation. So for me, dead straightforward. I intend to proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Officer has a point of order.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Just to clarify for the Chamber, we do have a social media policy. It is linked to your code of conduct. That social media policy is one that's been a guidance note by lawyers in local government, the LGA, the Association of Democratic Services. So national bodies have got together, and you have actually signed up to that social media policy. And if I may suggest, if I can, Chair, through your discretion, is that the mention of a task and finish steering group to be able to look at social media wider in the context being put forward, the starting point would be to look at that social media policy and to see, what parts of it are perhaps not clear that you want, and then pass that round as guidance.
Okay.
Chair, can I just get a point of clarity, because I'm genuinely confused here. At an earlier point, the monitoring officer asked Councillor Dickinson to specify a time. Councillor Dickinson said 2017. I then either misheard, or it is correct, that I then heard 10 days being mentioned. So is it 10 days to declare that you were a member, that you were an administrator up to the 2017 period, or is it you're just going back 10 days?
Chair, through you. So, Councillor Daly, you can only declare something that you are now. You can't declare that you once got your hair cut somewhere, in a different town or whatever. This is about the here and now. So if you're filling in your forms in 10 days and you're admin of a page that doesn't clearly identify Wayne Daly, I am admin of this page, and it isn't clear in any other way, it isn't Wayne Daly's Facebook page, that's what you're declaring. So in 10 days, are you running such a page? Yes or no? You fill it in so that it's clear on your declarations of interest, because those pages lobby council and so on and so forth, lobby the public. Yeah. And so I think that it's quite clear. It's from 10 days' time. If you close down your page, I don't care, do what you want, but that's it.
Yep, good.
As quick as possible, please.
Yeah, please, I appreciate that. Just clarity where we're on, because Councillor Reid proposed, I seconded. Councillor Reid hasn't accepted the amendment.
He doesn't have to accept the amendment.
But then we vote on the amendment.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's what we do. And can I just make one point as a second? One very quick point.
Is it a point
I agree
of
with everything that everyone said. There's some preferences. I think I would prefer a bit
This
more
isn't.
scrutiny
That's
on
not
it.
point of order,
Quick
Councillor
point.
Hill.
Can I just make one point? What?
No,
can I
you
just,
can't. It's 7 minutes past. We need to get a move on.
One quick point.
No, because there's stuff I'd like to put in the debate. I didn't. I could have gone on about what people said about my sexuality, but I didn't.
I did second it, Chair.
John. Very quickly then.
I think it is a point of order. On a declaration of interest, you've got 28 days to declare an interest from within 28 days. So it's just a little bit of an inconsistency if you then have 10 days, which is 14 days.
That might well be, but I think we are where we are.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, so I'm going to move to a vote then. All those in favour, please show. Keep your hands up.
Might be, no.
It's
no,
not quite. Right. I'll then do all those against. All those abstaining. Right, did we get all that? Okay, right, so I'm going to go back to where we are. The amendment's been carried. Do I have to do anything after that? I've got right, so that's
tagged on to.
That's been passed. Without further ado, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.
Point of order, Chair. We need to vote in the main motion.
No, can I put forward, Councillor Wearmouth? It's been included in the actual motion, which is to amend Appendix 1.
Okay.
Because the amendment 1.
So the whole thing's been carried?
Yeah, the whole thing's been carried.